here we go. So the first question I challenge you is what's your why? Your why of D&I. And that really matters because people they get hung up with inclusion, belonging, diversity, the buzzwords, wokeism, all these various topics we hear in the news and on the media and in our discussions every day. So what I like to talk about is these three pillars of ancient Greece, the philosophy. Ethos, so the ethical response. We're doing it because it's the law, because we have these ethics in place in our organisation, these rules and policies and things. We also have logos, which is the logical response, the business case, the bottom line, how it adds value to our business. So people thinking in a more logical way. But where I like to come from is pathos, which is all about the human factor. And I strongly believe that if we focus on people first, get our people strategy, get our culture, get the way that people feel and how we include them, we get that right, then the business case and the outputs we want as a business will follow. And of course, if that happens, then the compliance, the ethical response also kicks in as well. So I'm very much a human factor, human first, emotional response first. And I also think that as a business, that's far more authentic, far more in tune with your values than it is by just talking about the business case all the time. Because people don't want to be a number. They don't want to be doing it because it's the right thing to do for the balance sheet or for the stakeholders. They want to do it because you care. So this is why human first, emotional response, pathos. So the inclusion objective, we talk about DEI, DEIB, DEIJ, inclusion, belonging, justice, equity, all these buzzwords you may hear. And it can get very confusing sometimes. So what I talk about here is the objective we're trying to achieve is positive people experiences. Sorry, my phone seems to be ringing. My Alexa's kicked in. Anyway, so the objective we're trying to achieve here is not about inclusion, belonging, diversity. It's about positive people experiences. If my experience in dealing with you as a candidate, as an employee, as a stakeholder, as a customer, as a supplier, whatever it may be, I want my experience to you to be positive. And that's what I'm aiming for here. So the output of the DEI, people, well-being, all these initiatives is positive experiences. And that's what we're focused on today. I'd like to also talk about the Frida principles. And these are, again, I treat these as a very a mantra that I hold dear. Frida stands for fairness, respect, equality, dignity, and autonomy. I want to be treated fairly. I want to be treated with respect. I want to be treated with equality or equity in my life. Dignity. I don't want people to use my wrong name, my wrong pronouns. I don't want people to bully me, harass me. So I want these things, and I want autonomy. I want to be able to be myself, bring my whole self to work. So if we hold these principles dear when we're interacting with people, because the inevitability is we can't include everybody. Not everybody can be included. We have one role. We have 100 applicants. We can't hire everybody, no matter how much we love them all. But what we have to do is ensure that the process we go through is fair. We show respect for people's effort, their time, their well-being. We ensure there's equity in the process. If they have a disability, need a reasonable adjustment, they're neurodiverse, maybe we need to give extra support for people who are parents, who have childcare responsibility or care responsibility. Make sure we give dignity and that agency in the process. So this is, I expect it for myself. So what I hope we do is trying to create this positive people experience is make sure we live to these values. I always think of it a bit like a subroutine in my head. Am I being fair? Am I being respectful? Who aren't I? Think about what more can I do for you? So let's think about some of the root causes of the challenges we face in the inclusion in this positive people experience is the biases, the perspectives, and the blind spots we have. So we have our biases, this part of our brain back here, this reptilian part of our brain reacts very, very quickly, and it links to our vagus nerve, which attacks our adrenaline, our stomach, which is why we feel queasy, all these things, or nervous, or fight, flight, or freeze mechanism kicks in. So our biases are really powerful, based on a lot about our lived experience, who we are, but also the safety thing, keeping us alive. Not all biases are bad. Some biases are positive, some biases are negative. And we also have our perspectives, how we've grown up in life, how we see the world. Do you see patterns in clouds? Are you a logical person? What sort of thinker are you? Your political allegiance, all these various aspects kick in. And of course we have our blind spots, our blinkers. I think through the lens of a white person. I don't consider racism in my life because I don't experience it. So I think very much through the lens of a white person. So I could be blind to the lived experience and the challenges that someone who is black, brown, a person of colour would face in the world. So I've got to make sure that I lift my blinkers away so I can see the different lived experiences. So this is the challenge we've got to face. So our perspective, how we see the world, it leads us to our opinions. And often our opinions are just that. They're our opinions. So if you look at this diagram here, or this picture, you can see that one person thinks the sphere is black. And why wouldn't they? Because from where they're sitting and their position, it is black. And the other person will swear that it's white. Of course, we're sat back. We're sat back from this. And we can see two perspectives. We can see it's both black and it's white. So we have to recognise that we have to sometimes shift our view of the world to see a different side to things. So there's your truth, there's my truth, and then there's the shared truth or the bigger truth, which is why we have to value diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, diversity of lived experience in our process, in our teams. So we see more than just what I believe. Now, if we consider this equation, this is often used in psychology and other fields, E plus R equals O, where E is an event, something triggers us to do something, we react, and that leads to an outcome. So what I think about here is the plus symbol here. This plus is our perspective. How I perceive that event will dictate how I react and lead to an outcome. So if I see a spider running across the floor, I'm quite spider friendly. I'm not going to react in a negative way. If anything, I'm going to collect it in a glass, put it outside the front door and look after it, because my perspective is spiders are good. Spiders kill flies, spiders look after other bugs. They're healthy in my home. Whereas my wife has a different perspective. Her perspective is it's evil, it's going to attack her, she needs to kill it and stamp on it. So the outcome for me is a safe and happy spider. The outcome for my wife is a dead, squashed spider on the wall or the carpet. So we both have a different perspective, and that leads to a different outcome. And we can think about that in our hiring process and our work allocation, how we treat people. Even when we vote at a general election, we don't always vote for the same people because we have a different perspective. So rather than argue about the outcome or debate the outcome, what we need to do is try to share how we believe, how we've reached that perspective. Again, by being conscious about this, by actively showing an interest in why somebody thinks something. So that why is a great question. Why is my wife scared of spiders? Why does my wife want to kill them? And I can't necessarily solve that problem, but what I can do is understand it. I can understand that she has that desire, and in the same way she wonders why I want to protect them. So rather than argue about the outcome, let's talk about the perspectives and discuss why, through my lived experience, through my political allegiances, through my faith, race, ethnicity, my gender, all these various aspects lead me to believe something. So Paul Sappho, a forecaster, has coined this phrase, and he says, strong opinions weakly housed. This is all around knowing what you stand for, knowing your beliefs. But don't hold them too tight. Don't become a prisoner to those beliefs. Scratch your thoughts in sand, not carve them in stone, so you can modify them. Think about science as a profession. Science is all about trying to prove something wrong, trying to learn from the previous theory to find out. Science is never ending. Our exploration of the universe and biology and everything, we're expanding every day. So we have to think about the same about people and situations. We're not always right. Confirmation bias. We want to be right. We love to be right. But we're not always right. So if we start from a position of being wrong and trying to prove ourselves wrong and asking lots of why questions, why do I believe that? I've got a CV here. This person isn't going to pass my 6 seconds of glance. Why not? Why don't I like them? So rather than just saying, I don't like them and put them down, go, hang on a minute, what is it about this person that doesn't meet the criteria? Why am I rejecting them? So ask yourself why you're rejecting someone, not just why am I accepting somebody. So again, and be open to conversation with your colleagues, in your team or your review panels and say, look, this is what I believe. This is why I've come to this conclusion. Challenge me, ask me questions about that. Maybe we can explore a bias, or maybe we can bring a different understanding or a different perspective on that I haven't seen in my original thinking. So again, when we think about inclusive leadership, half of that is being collaborative and challenging and having the courage and humility and vulnerability not to always be right, to explore these options. So strong opinions weakly held. Challenge yourself that you're not right. So the next thing I want to talk about is psychological safety. AKA bring your whole self to work, dignity and respect and autonomy, so you can turn up at work as you. And this isn't a license, authenticity isn't a license to speak your mind and be obnoxious for the sake of it. It's about being yourself, allowing yourself to contribute. And there's 4 stages. We can talk about these. The inclusion safety. I'm valued and accepted for who I am. I'd like to be embraced and celebrated for who I am, but acceptance is the bare minimum. Learning. I want to be able to make mistakes. We do not learn when we get it right. All we learn is what's right. We don't learn what's wrong. So we learn more as human beings by making mistakes. If you look at the evolution of our children, how people grow up at school, we have to make mistakes. We need red marks in our homework to learn what the good answers are. We can't. If we always get 10 out of 10, we probably no idea how we learn that. So we need to be able to make mistakes. Of course, in a business environment, we need to create a safe zone where people can make mistakes without it damaging a customer experience, without killing somebody in an operating theatre, or whatever it may be. I need to be able to contribute. How would I feel if I turned up for work every day and people just said, Joanne, sit in the corner at that desk. I want you to count beans. I don't need to put any thought into it. I don't need to improve the process. I just want you to get on with it. My motivation for that role is going to be low. If I've got lots of ideas for bean counting improvement, I need to be able to speak up. I need people to listen to me, because I'm at the coalface. I'm the one doing the work. I'm probably the best expert in that task than the person who set it to me. So I need to be able to feel like I can contribute to my role. And of course, the last element here is challenging. I need to be able to whistleblow. I need to be able to call it out. I need to highlight discrimination. I need to be able to highlight victimization, bullying. I need to be able to speak out against injustice. I need to speak out when a process doesn't work. And I have to feel that I won't be victimized or treated less so because I've spoken up. So if we think about these elements of psychological safety, and in reality, I'm sure we're all thinking, that's exactly what I expect. Or, you're right, I don't have the opportunity to challenge or speak up, or I'm afraid. That's where we can identify sort of low psychological safety. And that's what we need as a workplace, as an organisation. We need to challenge ourselves to make it better. So you may have heard the term microaggressions. And when we think about dignity, respect, we think about that challenge of safety. Microaggressions is where you're trying to bring your whole self to work, and people maybe tolerate you or they don't fully understand you. And microaggression is not as overt in your face, if you like, as discrimination. Discrimination is often very deliberate, very targeted. Microaggressions are generally from well-meaning people who don't know the right language or don't know about your identity, or are clumsy. We see this all the time. So there's 3 different sorts of microaggressions. We've got an insult, micro-insult, where someone behaves in an intentionally discriminatory way whilst not meaning to be offensive. And that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron. They're discriminatory, but they're not intending it to be offensive. And we can see some examples here. So from a gender perspective, saying to a woman who's doing a role, are you sure you can handle that? Carry some bricks, put up a shelf. Are you sure that you're able to operate a screwdriver? So again, it's using bias or discrimination or view of what a woman can do versus what you think a man should be doing, and then saying that. And again, it's not meant to be offensive, but it is. And again, I pick up another one here. So for disability, you're just getting on, you're doing your role, you're doing whatever it is, and then you get told that you're inspirational just for being you. And again, you're not intended to be offensive. What you're trying to do there is you're probably trying to say, wow, you're incredible. I love your resilience. But again, what you're effectively doing is saying, I didn't expect you to be resilient. I didn't expect you to be capable, but you've proved me wrong. And it's not for us to prove each other wrong in that respect. So again, we've got to think about the language we're using and how we perceive it. Then we've got assaults, subtle snubs, hidden insults, and it underlines again an unconscious view, a stereotype of them being abnormal, immoral, weak characters. So again, I'll pick one out here. So sexual orientation, disclosing someone's identity, gender identity, sexual orientation without someone's permission. You're undermining them. Maybe in religion, derogatory terms about someone's religion. Maybe you write them off. Maybe you're saying something around a religious holiday, around someone's Muslim faith. Again, you're saying something that undermines them because you see them as less than you. You hold a privilege, if you like. So again, there's some examples there that you can see. And then we've got invalidation. And I think this one is kind of understated, where we deny the lived experience of people. We've heard it recently. There's no racism and sexism in the police force. But that undermines the lived experience of both serving officers who experience sexism and racism on a daily basis, the members of the public, people who've been arrested, stopped and searched disproportionately because they're black. We've seen high-profile cases really about the kidnapping, rape and murder of a young woman by a serving police officer. So we know that these things exist within the service. And by denying them, what we're doing is we're invalidating people's lived experience. So again, the insult, the assault, and the invalidation, all subtle, not meant to offend, but the impact is really, really bad on people. So what happens is if you're experiencing microaggressions on a daily basis, you have all these things going through your head. Oh, did I really hear that? Did she say that really? What do they mean? Should I say something back? Should I speak up? But hang on a minute, if I speak up, it'll make it worse, or they'll think I'm overreacting, or I'll make a big deal of it and they'll treat me badly in the future. So inevitably what happens with microaggressions is people just let them pass. And then what happens? Eventually that drip, 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 that corrosiveness of mistrust of your colleagues, that constantly experiencing that question, maybe as a person who has auburn hair, you get sick and tired of the auburn hair jokes, maybe your Scottish accent, whatever it may be, you get sick and tired of it. And one day you go, enough is enough. You lash out and say, I can't take this anymore. And everyone looks at you and go, what? I only asked a question. But this is the first time they've asked, but the 1,000th time you've had to respond to it. No wonder you're frustrated. So we've got to really be conscious about your one question is sometimes the straw that breaks that camel's back. And that's the point that snaps. So be prepared for that. So it's really important that we own our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. Because how we think about people carries as much weight in our consciousness as how we talk about people out loud or interact with people. I'll give you an example. The phone rings, we look at it, it pops a number with someone's name on it. You think, oh, God, not them again. Oh, I can't deal with them. Click off. And then somebody else rings. You go, oh, yeah, it's great. I love them. I'll talk to them. So, and then when the conversation starts, are we speaking with a smile or are we speaking with a frown? So our whole demeanour, our whole personality will align with how we think about that person. And again, in the workforce, in every day, how we think and refer to people. We do it. We have a member of our team and we have this sort of like common banter about them. We say, oh yeah, they're always late. We create these generalizations. And then this person finds it very difficult to break out of that stereotype that we've created, either around their characteristic or their personality. And that becomes the norm about how we think and refer to them. So we've got to be really, really careful here about how we think, how we refer, how we talk, and the language we use. So let's think about intent and impact. And this is quite fundamental to when we think about conscious inclusion. How I intended you to receive my message is different to the actual way you received it. I have this internal voice in my head. I talk things through with myself, and to me it sounds very reasonable. I'm writing an email, I'm typing a text message. I think that sounds really nice, really constructive. But when the person receives it, they look at it and they use their internal voice in their head, and it means something different. They interpret it in a way you probably never intended. So what we have to recognize here is the intent I have is well-meaning, well intended. I don't want to cause you harm. I don't want to negatively impact you. but the impact is it did. So again, analogy, you think about the difference between murder and manslaughter. Murder and manslaughter, the intent is different, but the impact is the same. Someone has lost a loved one. So when we're sentencing in this country, they think about impact on the family, impact on the crime. So the intent, yes, well-meaning, but impact is negative. And this is where it's really important to think about how to be accountable. Again, when we think about conscious inclusion, when we think about allyship, how can I make amends? I'm not going to get it right every time, no matter how in tune I am with the world, no matter how EDI savvy I am. I'm not going to get it right every time. I'm going to drop the egg. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to use the wrong language. I'm going to mispronounce someone's name. I'm going to forget to put a lactose-free supplement on the coffee bar. Or I'm going to forget to put decaf coffee out, whatever it may be, whatever trivial it is, or I may not give wheelchair access to the venue. I might put the tables and chairs too close together so people can't navigate. A whole load of things I can get it wrong without consciously thinking about it. So it's about how I react, my plan B. So saying I meant well, yeah, we all mean well. It wasn't my intent. Yeah, of course. It was a mistake. Oh, yeah. Or we are sorry. That generic, wasn't me. We. Or banter. It was a laugh. Come on. You can take it seriously. Come on. You can't say anything these days. Only a bit of humour. Don't be a snowflake. Grow a pair. All that kind of comment. That's not accountability. That's using your privilege. That's pushing it away. That's putting the responsibility onto the person that's been impacted and saying, deal with it. I'm not taking responsibility. What we want to do is we need to own this. I broke the egg. I made a mistake. I am sorry. How can I make amends? And I understand it's not funny. So I'm using the I message. I'm using that, taking that responsibility to make it better. And the question I always ask at the end is, what could I do better next time? Or how can I help you? Or what could we do differently to make your experience better? That's what I want to find out. And that's my plan B, is ask for help. I know we shouldn't burden people with being the educator. Asking a person with a disability or wheelchair user to educate you on their disability is not fair. Asking a black person to explain racism to you is not fair. But what you can say is, how can I make your experience better? What could I do differently next time? Would this help you in future? So we can use that plan B to ask for help, provided we've put some effort in the first place to understand that need. And of course, we hear this golden rule all the time. Treat people as you want to be treated. I hear many people say this all the time. Treat people as you want to be treated. You can't go wrong. But the reality is, I need to treat people as they want to be treated. Their lived experience, their needs as a human being. And I have to be really focused on this, because if I treat you as a black person as I want to be treated as a white person through my blinkers, I'm missing something that works for you. I may miscommunicate. If you're neurodiverse, I may not communicate in a way that works for you. I'm talking as it from my perspective, not from yours. So as a leader, and I think we're all leaders in our own right, as a leader, I need to adapt my communication style to meet you halfway, or to meet you where you are, so that you are treated as you want to be treated. I think it's really important. And I think going back to that conscious inclusion element, it's being hyper aware of your need to reach people where they are, not reach people where you are. So allyship, inclusion, for me, is holistic, active, and deliberate. Not passive or incidental. So it's about being an active ally, being deliberate about it, and making sure we're allies for all. Who doesn't deserve to be treated with dignity and respect? Is that our responsibility to decide who is or who isn't worthy? Surely not. We're all entitled to that basic respect and being treated fairly. Just because you don't get me, just because you don't get somebody else, you don't understand about this or about that, doesn't mean to say they don't deserve that respect. So active and deliberate. It's about you reaching out, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. So what is an active ally and a passive ally? So passive ally, let's start with passive ally. A passive ally is someone who will sit back, they'll do the minimum, and that doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them a bad person at all. It's just their mindset around allyship is not proactive. They'll do it when it's necessary. They won't do necessarily any research. They'll make mistakes and they'll fumble their way through. Whereas an active ally is constantly seeking out knowledge, constantly trying to grow, constantly trying to develop, seeking out injustice, seeking out discrimination, seeking out microaggressions, and making an effort to call it in or call it out. I'll come back to that as well later on. So an active ally is a deliberate act. But wherever you are on that spectrum between passive and active, you're not a bad person. It's your choice. But how we can move through from passive to active is really important. So again, this conscious inclusion, this make an impact, take action. So it is important. It is important. And we need to encourage people to move to this active state. And that is around, we think about in the workplace, in the hiring process, in our work allocation, in our team dynamics, allyship to each other, that conscious inclusion, caring about the needs of others, how they experience the motivation, communication, language, everything is really important. So we have to recognize that some people who come from maybe a less privileged environment, marginalized, discriminated against, we need to give equity into their lives and make sure we amplify them and give them the spotlight. We also need to be intersectional. Hopefully you've heard of the term intersectionality, coined in the late 80s by a black lawyer called Kimberly Crenshaw. She identified that we are more than just a single characteristic. We are layered, all those layers of our identity. And I think of it a bit like Kaplunk. Remember the Kaplunk game where you put the straws in, you drop the balls in it? The more privilege you hold, the less straws there are, and you just drop the ball and it pops out the bottom. Our path to success is largely unhindered. The more straws, being black, being a woman, being queer, having neurodiversity, being a young mother, having care and responsibilities, all these straws block the path of the ball. So it's not that you can't succeed. It's just that statistically you are less likely to drop that ball through without pulling some of those straws out. So we need to put anti-discrimination, anti-sexism. We need to be conscious about removing those barriers in society and also the workplace to allow that path, that probability of success to increase. So there are lots of barriers to inclusion, and hopefully we can identify some of these. So the first thing is understanding, this conscious inclusion, active allyship, understanding about other people, treating people as they want to be treated, understanding what that need is. And then we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate ourselves to the needs of other people, their communication, their whatever that may be. But we also lack visibility and role models. And there's an adage, you can't be what you can't see. If I don't see another black person or another woman in these roles, how can I possibly be the first? So we need to set role models and targets and create visibility. We need sponsors, organisation who are going to promote equity and elevate people from marginalised or minority characteristics, and not just tokenism. We see too many glass ceilings, too many broken runs, too many sticky floors, all these buzzwords and these phrases that prevent people from progressing in organisations. We need mentoring programs, we need support, we need champions, but we need people who can be the first and set that possibility for others. So ways that you can be a great, not just good, a great ally and supporter. First point is respect. So respecting me as a human being, my ethnicity, my faith, my skin colour, I celebrate my identity, my gender identity, my sexuality, whatever it may be. Respecting me for who I am. Put in the time in, put in the work in to educate yourself. Discover what you don't know about my characteristic, what makes me happy. If you don't fully understand around neurodiversity, around Asperger's, about an autistic spectrum, around trans, non-binary identities, people with disability, you have the opportunity to educate. And we know there are documentaries, we know there is Netflix, we know there is BBC iPlayer, we know there's Amazon, there's Waterstones, there's books, there's Audible. We've got gigabytes and gigabytes and thousands of hours of resource in our pockets, on our phones, or on the telly, wherever you want to consume it. We can educate ourselves. But it needs you to want to. Again, being active, being conscious about this, you have to want to find out. When you come across something educational on television, do you flick it off, or do you engross? I look for education around inclusion, around people experiences in various places. And I remember I was watching a children's film, Hotel Transylvania 3, if you've ever seen that. It's a cartoon. It's obviously part of a trilogy. And there's a line at the end where they say, you've got to be greater than the haters. Got to be greater than the haters. And I think that's great because it reminded me I've got to elevate myself above hate. I've got to elevate myself above the negativity in the world that I see and feel and experience on occasions. So I've got to be greater. I've got to step out of that and move myself up. I also learnt about dwarfism. I've learnt about deafness. I've learnt around a whole number of characteristics just by watching documentaries. A program the other night around sewage in the wetlands and in our riverways. Yes, that's not EDI, but that's around social justice. It's about caring for our environment. And we know that people in our organisations care deeply about this. So having an understanding around the causes and what matters around sustainability, around environmental issues, also it creates a way of being inclusive and conscious about what matters to other people. Listening. Listen to who I am. Listen to what makes me happy, what makes me sad. I always say, if you can focus on what makes me happy and avoid what makes me sad, we'll have a fantastic friendship and working relationship. So listen to me. Don't expect me to be your educator, but listen to the nuances that make me happy and sad. What's going on in the news? Is any of that likely to impact me as a human being? Listen about what's going on. Ask me if I'm okay. There was this big announcement about something. There's been the anti-racism about in the police. There's been lots of things. If your colleague is black, brown, or a person of colour, they may be hugely impacted by racism and the police force. So seeing something being advertised may be really important. Yes, our Home Secretary just declared that people who are queer aren't worthy of support through the asylum process. You may know people who are immigrants into our country. You may know people who are queer, who are deeply offended or deeply upset by those remarks. Again, check in, make sure they're okay, listen to them. And of course, then we can advocate, then we can stand up. This is where we can be active in our allyship. Speak up, challenge. Speak with me, not for me. Don't speak over me. Amplify me. Be my advocate, even when I'm not in the room. So where are you on this journey? From active allyship to passive allyship, and there's no right. As I said, there's no right or wrong way. Maybe we start with on this continuum with the oblivious. We're unaware. We don't care. We're blinkered. We've got our own pressures. We've got our own challenges. And that's fine. But hopefully we start by moving towards outsider, where we may be passive by choice. We kind of get it, but we're not really interested. We're not going to get involved. That's for other people to worry about. That's HR. That's DEI team. I'm an engineer. I do this, or I process accounts. Allyship. Or an onlooker. We sometimes call this performative action. Organisations are often guilty of this. We're doing the hashtags, we're resharing things. Okay, look at me, I've got a badge, it says ally on it, or I'm wearing a rainbow lanyard, or whatever it may be. But we're just we're being performative. We're doing kind of the minimum, but really it's inauthentic and doesn't benefit anybody else other than ourselves. Then we've got people who are on board, comfortable with the uncomfortable, able to start challenging, able to start calling things in, calling things out. Of course, where we're trying to get to is this ongoing, consciously and consistently anti-discriminatory, active allies, promoting, advocating, listening, learning, respecting. So wherever we are on the spectrum, and maybe we're in the orange to green, maybe we're between onlooker and on board, and maybe as a result of National Inclusion Week and the other initiatives you're following, maybe you want to get between on board and ongoing, which is fantastic. So it's about getting on this journey. But if you're perfectly happy being oblivious, then I'm not one to force you to move on. So I believe we should all adopt a stance in our workplaces of zero tolerance to harassment, to victimization, to banter, to bullying. And banter, those innocuous jokes, those sort of like only joking, just a bit of a laugh, those sayings that we have, the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, the comedy club, or referring to sitcoms on telly. We know that can be corrosive. We know that can be divisive. And we know that effectively it becomes harassment to people. It becomes bullying to people. So we need to step out of that And in the workplace, we need to have a zero tolerance. We need to understand what is good language, what is bad language, what our position as a company is on certain topics. And then we enforce, or we make people very aware of their responsibility to comply with what we believe as an organisation is correct. If you believe that being anti-racist is important as an organisation, or anti-homophobic or anti-transphobic or anti-ableist, whatever it may be, document that and say, this is what we stand for. Moving on from that performative, yay, hashtag, we've done it, yay. But what are you actually saying? What are you saying in public? What are you posting on your social media, through your comms channel, about what you stand for? If you're in the recruitment process, what do you stand for? What can candidates expect from you? What's your values? Part of your value proposition, part of your corporate brand and your culture. What do you stand for? So that when people aren't meeting that values, that aren't meeting that brand, then you can have conversations. Then you can sit down and say, you're aware that this is our view on this topic and your view is this. We need you to either change, not necessarily change your view, but we need to be respectful of this is the view of the company. If this isn't the right place for you, we fully understand. But we cannot tolerate racist views or sexist views or that behaviour in our organisation. So I've been very explicit. And if you look at recent tribunal cases, this particular ones around transgender individuals, it's established people's right to have a protected belief. But one's right to hold a protected belief doesn't extend to weaponising it and expressing it to someone else's detriment. So again, setting those clear guidelines, those clear rules, create great fences, make good neighbours. So great policies make great colleagues. So again, be very conscious of this. So I talked about calling out, calling in. The difference, if you've not heard of this expression before, so calling out it's almost like a stop. What did you say? You can't say that. More of a policing angle of it. Whereas calling it in, it's an educational. And Ramesh Ranganathan, the comedian, came up with this a few weeks ago. I think it was in the press and the media. He says, when you're out with a group of friends in the bar or socialising, if someone says something that is a bit ouch, you can call it in by saying, mate. It's kind of like, seriously? Really? Pardon? Come on. Anything like that. It's a way of just nudging somebody to bring it from their unconscious to their conscious mind. What did you say? Really, did you mean that? And then you can educate. Actually, that word isn't great. If you were to use this word or this phrase, did you realise that phrase is racist? Do you realise that what that's doing is reflecting your privilege by saying something like, oh, come on, everybody can succeed if they try hard enough. That's invalidating the lived experience of people who maybe haven't had the educational process, haven't had the opportunity. Maybe English isn't their first language, maybe they're neurodiverse. So we're invalidating people. So if you call it in that way, using phrases like, oh, I've got a bit of OCD. Well, actually, you haven't. What you've got is you've got a habit. OCD is a clinical diagnosis. And we've got to be careful we're not using these words and co-opting them. So calling it in is a way of just saying to somebody, come on, seriously, have a think about what you just said and let's have a chat about that. So if we can call in, that's great. But if you need to say no, stop, that is unacceptable, then please do step in and call it out there and then. So before we go on to questions, we have 15 minutes for questions. Let me just run through some top tips to summarise what I've talked about. So lead by example, exemplify best practice. Whether you're a leader of self, talking to clients, talking to customers, talking to wherever it may be, or candidates, exemplify actively in actions, not just words, and not just in actions, in thoughts, words, and deeds. So how you think, how you speak, how you act. Speak up. Don't stand by. Don't be a bystander. Don't let non-inclusive behaviour, discriminatory behaviours, whatever it may be, pass on your watch. Otherwise, what you're saying is, it's okay with me. If it's not okay with me, stand up and say so. Call it in, call it out. Continuous learning. Commit to learn more. Have that drive to find out about people, about cultures, around the challenges people face. Listen to them. Speak less. Allow marginalised voices to be heard. They are their own experts. They will know what is struggling in their lives. They will enlighten you where they need to. So always listen. Again, accountability. Be accountable for your thoughts, your words, your deeds, your intent versus the impact. Own it. I'm sorry. How can I help? Be adaptable. Again, one of the core elements of inclusive leadership: humility, vulnerability, but also adaptability. You're not always right. You don't have to be right. You can be wrong. You can learn. In fact, we have far more respect for people who are adaptive. It's not about being wishy-washy. It's about being adaptive and adjusting your thinking based on new information. Celebrate diversity. Don't see it as a threat. Don't see it as a challenge. Don't see it as attacking your privilege. Celebrate it. Look at the value that difference of opinion can bring to your workplace and to your social life. Invest in inclusion as an organisation. Invest in initiatives that level the playing field. Bring that equity. Boost people. Amplify people. Increases the talent pool. Increases the number of people, the candidates you may face. Have increases the number of clients that will be willing to work with you because of your inclusivity. Check your privilege. We speak through our own blinkers, our own lens. We see the world through our own eyes. Sometimes we need to step out of that and recognise the privilege we hold. English is my first language. I speak English. I use English anecdotes. I use examples from my history and my life. I know that may not be relatable to someone whose first language isn't English. And I think lastly, it's about being authentic. Performative allyship? No, we don't need that. What we need is active, holistic and deliberate. We need to be committed to this change, this consciousness about our inclusion, consciousness about positive people experiences. So, National Inclusion Week, take action, make an impact. Active allyship, conscious inclusion, making an impact. So the acronym ACT, action changes things. You may not be able to change the world all on your own. You may not be able to change the organisation on your own, but you can change yourself. You can change the way you see things. You can change the way you step up. You can change the way in which you educate yourself. So you can be the one that changes and becomes an influencer for those around you. Thank you very much.